This week is all about Locast. Hi folks, and welcome to another topical deep dive here on the Cord Cutters News channel. This week we're focusing on Locast. That's the non-profit streaming service that aims to give you access to a whole bunch of your local channels. But what is it and how does it work? And perhaps more importantly, where does it work? Well, we're going to cover all that and more in this video that we're calling 5 Things You Should Know About Locast. Number 1. What is Locast? So in a nutshell, Locast takes your local over-the-air channels and makes them available via streaming. And as we'll see, it's not currently available in every US market, but the service is expanding at a considerable rate, including 2 new major markets in the past month or so. And by making those channels available via streaming, Locast could be a useful alternative for those who want access to their local channels but aren't able to make the most out of an over-the-air antenna. Now that could be due to geography or location, preventing stable, consistent access to some of your local channels, or maybe you want those local channels on more devices beyond your main TV with its OTA antenna. So if a service like Locast sounds interesting to you, feel free to follow along as we get into more detail about how it all works. Number 2. How much does Locast cost? So Locast is free to download and sign up for, but donations to the service are, shall we say, encouraged. You'll see that donation messaging popping up fairly frequently, and you'll see suggestions for $5 per month on up. There are also annual donation options like $60 or $100 per year. Oh, and whether you choose the monthly or annual options, there's a 50-cent processing fee tacked on, so heads up for the additional charge. And as for where those funds go, Locast says the donations go toward the cost associated with the equipment, bandwidth, and support required to run its streaming service. And you can use your credit or debit cards along with PayPal to pay for your donation, and no, in case you're wondering, there's currently no option for a one-time donation. Number 3, what cities does Locast support? Okay, so before we get into the actual Locast support, it's important to note that more cities are being added to the list fairly frequently. In fact, the group has added a pair of major markets in the past couple of weeks, with the addition of Cleveland, Ohio and Portland, Oregon. So just be aware that if you're checking out this video a little further into the future, it's worth checking their site for the latest on supported cities. Oh, and you can also check out cordcuttersnews.com, where we regularly post updates whenever new cities and markets are added. And so with all of that being said, here's where things stand at the time we recorded this video toward the end of March 2021. So as you can see, Locast currently, and emphasis on currently there, supports 31 markets around the country thanks to the recent addition of Cleveland and Portland to the list. And you'll see some major cities included on that list too. There are areas like New York, Houston, Los Angeles, Chicago, Seattle, and others. It's also worth pointing out that the overall coverage areas and channels available varies in each market. For example, the recent addition of Cleveland opened up the service to some 70 channels in that market, which includes 17 counties. Meanwhile, the Portland edition includes 39 local channels and support for neighboring cities like Salem, Tillamook, and others. And again, the list of supported cities is subject to change, so if you don't see your market on this list at the moment, don't lose hope. You can stay up to date over at cordcuttersnews.com, and as we say often, stay tuned. Number 4, what's it like to use? So to get a good idea of what it's like to actually use Locast for local channels, we thought we'd get some hands-on time. Luckily for us, the Seattle area is among the supported cities, so we've been exploring the service here in Washington State. However, with the recent addition of Cleveland to Locast's list, that means other Cord Cutters News members can also try it out. So we gave our Cleveland bureau a call. All right, hello to the Cleveland office. How you doing, Jess?
Hello, this is fun. It feels like news from each coast, and I like it.
Yeah, it's like coast-to-coast coverage of Locast here. And it's funny because we've talked already on this video about Cleveland being added to the list of supported markets. And when that news came out, we had actual viewers and readers mention you by name.
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned this in the Q&A last week. I have never gotten more Twitter DMs, Facebook messages, emails, everything. It was coming at me all day of people just being like, hey, did you hear the great news? Locast is in Cleveland. How happy are you? And I was like, scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 12.
All right. So now that it is available in your area, let's dive into what it was like to at least initially set up.
Yeah, so for me, it was super easy. I started on my Roku TV in my living room, downloaded the app with no problem, and then I signed in on my computer to just make it easier for typing out all of my information. Logged in on the TV, no problem. Tried it on my Amazon Fire TV, no problem. Tried it on my Apple TV just to make sure that I was covering all my bases. And yeah, no issues using Locast for me.
Nice. Yeah, I think I did the opposite route. I signed up on my laptop. That went pretty well. They send you like the email verification, and I had a little issue there where I didn't get that first email notice, and I decided to go with it and see if I could still use Locast. And sure enough, I signed on my Roku in my bedroom, and it gave me a notice saying, "Hey, you need to verify first," which makes sense, I guess. So I came across a help page that says, "Hey, if you've had this issue, go to this page." So it's nice that they have that option if you're running into issues. So second email was sent, and I was up and running on the Roku, the laptop, and since then I've tested it also on my iPad and my iPhone, and so far so good on all the platforms. Yeah.
Yeah, same here. And one thing that's super small, but that I really appreciate is that they have you sign in on different devices using a code. So you can go to the
Yeah.
website and get your code and type it in. And just for someone like me who is incredibly lazy, I love not having to type in my entire email address and password. Just putting in that code has been great.
Absolutely. Yeah, one of the things I realized really quickly when I started doing those Roku comparisons between different devices is that some services are a lot better about that than others when I'm signing into my Netflix account on half a dozen different devices in the same day.
It gets old so fast and so much more convenient. Love it.
So now that you have it up and running, what do you think of using it so far?
I'm really loving it. So I don't know about you. I'm interested in the numbers. So I've told people a million times. So if anyone has been here for a while, especially the Q&A crowd, I love recommending antennas for local channels.
Yeah.
But for me personally, I only get 12 channels in my apartment. And a lot of that is just because I'm surrounded by concrete and buildings in the middle of the city. So only 12 channels. I never got CBS. I never got NBC, and that was killing me a little bit. So with Lowcast, I get 70 channels, and it has been just a huge, huge improvement. I really like it. I haven't noticed much of a quality issue either between using an antenna and using Lowcast. So that's been nice too.
Yeah, nice. I'm in like the opposite situation. Technically in the Seattle market, but I'm well outside Seattle city limits. So instead of buildings being the obstacle, I have geography basically. We have transmission towers like to the northeast and the northwest, and they're like, if you look at our signal strength, the towers go like that. And if I'm getting these channels well, it means I'm generally not getting these channels well, or vice versa. Sometimes it just depends on the weather. So some days I get CBS great and not NBC, and then other times it's the opposite. But yeah, so far with Lowcast, I haven't had any issues with that. On my latest channel rescan, which you're supposed to do pretty often with antennas, I've got 39 available channels over the air, and that squares exactly with what I get with Lowcast, 39 channels in the Seattle market, so not bad.
Yeah, that's awesome. And something that we love about Lowcast is that it works for a wide range of people as long as you're in that market. And the consistency is something that's really great. So I love that, like if I were out in the suburbs, maybe I would get 70 channels on my antenna, but not downtown. So just the consistency across the whole market is really nice.
Yeah, I'm liking that, and it gives you more flexibility. I mean, there are options to stream your OTA content to other devices, but this Lowcast offers a pretty direct, like basically a streaming service that you can watch local channels on your devices, on other TVs around the house that may not be physically connected to your antenna. So it's a pretty neat alternative.
Yeah. Has it been reliable for you? Have you had any channels acting funny when you try to watch them?
So far, so good. I've tried a lot of the problem channels that I've had issues with in the past. Luckily, we haven't had weather issues to compare in the past few weeks here in the Northwest. But again, CBS and NBC usually are kind of the trouble spots for me, especially catching Seahawks games. There'd be moments where the signal would cut out and we're just left in limbo, wondering what happened. But so far on Lowcast, I haven't had any issues.
Yeah, same here. And that's been really great too. So something that happens with my antenna sometimes, no one make fun of me for this, but when I'm watching The Bachelor on ABC, The picture will just randomly come in and out. And I watched with Locast last week and had no issue. So that was really nice too.
Nice. And we should also talk, of course, about the donation aspect of it. And if you use Locast for probably any length of time and you haven't donated yet, you'll get those regular reminders saying, hey, we accept donations. And I'm just curious how that experience has been for you.
So I used Locast for 3 or 4 days without making a donation. And again, the Q&A crowd, we do a Q&A on Wednesday nights if anyone's not familiar with why I keep saying that. So the Q&A crowd was just on me about making that donation. They were like, you can't use it without making the donation. But I really wanted to test it out for a few days without that, just to see how often it would interrupt and how annoying those interruptions would be. And I will say that while Locast is technically free, it's very, very difficult to use without making that donation.
Yeah, I found that every time I started up for the first time for the first time during the day or whatever, most times I will get that initial ad that says, "Hey, can you make a donation real quick?" So yeah, they remind you on a fairly regular basis. It seems that donations are definitely accepted.
Yeah, I noticed the first day I was using it, I only got that message once and it was during a commercial break. So not a problem. But then every day after that, it was interrupting shows and all kinds of stuff. I just purposely left Lowcast on for hours while I was doing other things to figure out how often I got them. And it was often enough to make it pretty difficult to watch without making a donation.
Yeah, so like you said, technically free, but maybe the user experience is a bit better if you do decide to donate.
Yeah, and I will say that for somebody like me who gets very limited channels with an antenna, having Lowcast is completely worth that $5 a month donation.
Right.
And I guess we should also talk about, I guess, some of the drawbacks or any criticisms we've had so far. Any issues so far with using Lowcast?
I don't have any big ones. I will say the guide is not my favorite, but I think that's just kind of personal preference. I don't know if it's like the way that the channels are lined up or if I just haven't used it enough to get comfortable with it, but that's my only feedback there, I think.
Yeah, the guide itself feels, I guess, fairly bare bones. It does its job, I guess. The user experience is slightly different on like touch interfaces, like the iPad. It was fairly easy to scroll there versus using my Roku remote. One thing that I did notice pretty quickly is that this does provide a live guide and you can look into the future and that's nice, but it doesn't include like perks that you might see on other live streaming services like DVR functionality. So this is strictly, local channel access, and that's about it. And if that's what you want, it seems to be delivering so far.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely gets the job done. And I will say the $5 donation thing, again, can be a drawback. For me personally, I'm happy to make that donation if it means getting Lowcast into more cities. Seems like they're expanding pretty quickly, and I'm happy to support that.
Yeah, and one of the issues, not really issues, but one of the concerns I'm having producing this video this week is that, that running total of supported cities can change at any moment. So just a heads up, if you're watching this video, that number that we have on the screen earlier in the video, that number might change in the near future.
Hopefully. We love seeing them go to more cities.
We should also touch on, the ongoing legal concerns, if you will, about Lowcast and broadcasters sharing their concerns about the legality of streaming their local content over the internet.
Yeah, I'm happy to give a quick backstory about this. So in July 2019, all of the big networks, so your ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, had come after Lowcast and said that they were breaking copyright or that they were infringing on copyright. And they were trying to get Lowcast shut down. So Lowcast very quickly came back and said, first of all, it took you over a year to come after us. So obviously we're not causing the irreparable damage that you say that we're causing you, because it seems like you didn't even notice until a year later. So that was the CEO's comeback to that claim. And then Lowcast also countersued and said, you are colluding to make these channels so hard for people to get. You are restricting these channels for so many people in the US, and that's not okay. So they were saying, we are doing a public service by offering these channels to as many people as possible. So there was a court claim, there was a counterclaim. They are still going at it to this day. Everything really kind of came to a halt during the pandemic, which I'm assuming is just because there were other issues going on. People didn't have time for this.
Yeah.
Broadcasters versus Locast situation. But Locast is still saying, hey, we're doing this under the, let me look at the year before I get it wrong, the Copyright Act of 1976. We have every right to be offering this as a public service. So we're a nonprofit. People can get this for free, technically. We're good. We're just offering people these channels that they have every right to have.
Yeah, and I guess for Locast and anyone interested in Locast, it'll be useful. It'll be useful to pay attention to Cord Cutters News, because we're gonna keep following that story, and we'll update it, as soon as we learn more and as soon as the story develops. Yeah.
Yeah, of course. So, like I said, nothing has really happened in the past year with the pandemic going on, and Locast seems unfazed right now. They just launched in Cleveland, like you said, Portland. They're all over the place, and they just keep adding cities. So it seems like they are just going to keep on going.
Yeah, it seems like full steam ahead over at Locast. And yeah, it's been interesting to watch for sure. Number 5, what about device support? You know what it's time for, some infographics. Okay, so on your screen right now are the various platforms and devices that currently support Locast. If you take a look around, you'll likely notice several of the major players on this list, including Roku, Fire TV, Android, and iOS. You'll also get support for Android TV, and that includes devices like NVIDIA's Shield TV line and TiVo's Stream 4K. And beyond all that, you'll also get Locast support through DirecTV, Uverse, and Dish's Hopper receivers. You can also use Locast through a web browser like Safari, Chrome, Edge, or Firefox on Macs and PCs, and it also includes casting support for standards like AirPlay and Chromecast. Unfortunately, as you can see from the list, there's currently no support for smart TV platforms from Samsung, LG, and others. Smart TVs running on Roku, Fire TV, or any of the other platforms listed right here should work just fine, but if you're using Samsung's Tizen or LG's WebOS as your primary platform, you'll need to hook something up like a Roku or Fire TV to access Locast content. Wrapping it all up. So there you go, those were 5 things you should know about Locast, and a huge thanks to Jess for sharing her thoughts on how the service works in her neck of the woods. But of course, we're just 2 people. If any of you out there have given the service a shot so far, feel free to share your experiences with your fellow cord cutters and streamers in the comment section down below. And if you've checked this video out and you end up trying it out for yourselves, you're more than welcome to come back here and share your thoughts as well. How's the streaming performance in your area? Are you getting the channels you expected? Any likes or dislikes so far? Let us know. And if there are other services out there you'd like us to take a closer look at in the future, you know where to let us know about those as well. In the meantime though, thank you all for tuning in. On your way out, be sure to click those all-important like and subscribe buttons down below. We'd certainly appreciate it. For now though, my name is Philip Palermo. We'll see you all next week. Take care.